for those of you who haven't practiced that, there is a little trick you can use incorporating the loop function on the CD deck and the effect on the mixer, which is trans. So that's short for transform or transformer, because it's such a commonly used kind of term in DJ terms that you often will find a trans effect on a mixer. Some it might be called gate, so it basically chops the sound in and out, like I was just doing here with the fader. This is a kind of James Abelia trick where basically you can loop the sample, put an effect over it so that it cuts in and out, and then it basically means you can move the platter around and it will do half of the work that the crossfader is doing for you. So if I play a beat first, what I'm going to do is set a loop around that R sound so there's no gap, so it's just going R, R like that. So I'm just going to change the speed slightly so that it kind of loops in time with the beat, so every beat is basically one loop. Now I'm going to tap the tempo into the mixer, put it on the trans effect and assign it to the channel that the scratching sound is on. Now if I put it on like a quarter value and activate it, you can hear it's cutting the sound in and out quickly. So now it means you can just move the platter because you're changing the kind of speed you do it at, you move the platter, it kind of sounds like you're scratching, because scratching is about cutting the sound in and out and creating different pitches. And obviously because the sound is looping, it's not going to run out, so you can literally fling the platter around and it will still... Now for added believability, if you're trying to fool your friends or your, the promoters out there, what you could do is make sure that the fader is no longer assigned to that sound, so the fader doesn't work anymore, but I could just basically pretend that I'm using that. And obviously it looks like you're actually creating that effect, so I wouldn't advise just doing that. Obviously it's going to sound better if you can really scratch, but it's a nice little kind of cheat. You can even go to the next level. If you went to an 8th note, then it's going to sound like, like Cuba or something. So, which is, ridiculously fast chops of the sound. So yeah, just to conclude or kind of recap on that, it's just literally loop a sample, then play it over a beat and tap the tempo of that beat into the mixer. So that means obviously the sample is going to be cut up at a speed that relates to the actual BPM of the track that you're doing it over. And then, yeah, you're assigning a trans effect over the scratch sound, activating it, and then literally just moving the sample around, basically, yeah. The other thing I was going to show you was a little trick using a snippet of an acapella to create kind of build-ups and like just textures over a tune. More so with minimal and that sort of thing. It's kind of using an echo and the pitch range. So what I'm going to do is get an acapella here. Where are we? So I've got this Dizzy Rascal acapella. Obviously that sort of thing, if you've got an acapella, is a good thing to scratch with, because it's just got the start of it is a gap, then a long sound. So you could by all means use a bit of an acapella or a tune that you've got without beats over it. So what I'm going to do is, I've got this Dizzy Rascal acapella. I've set a cue point. Now I'm going to take the master tempo off. So for those of you who don't know, master tempo is like key lock. So that means if that's on, the pitch of the vocal would stay at the original pitch, so like 0. Whereas with that off, the pitch will change in the same way that a turntable Technics would change the speed as well as the pitch. And if I go to the wide setting, that means now I've got a 200% speed range and pitch range. So it means I can basically create a massive, load of different notes using that vocal. So if I play a beat, then I tap the tempo in again, just in case it had lost it through the other technique. Now, if I assign an echo to that deck, so channel 2, put it on like a 3/4. Now, what I can do is, if I just tap it, obviously for a split second, if I tap the Q button, it just echoes out. But what you can do is kind of use the pitch with one hand and the Q button with your other hand. So you get these weird kind of textures at different pitches, obviously with echo. Quite good for build-ups if you've got a tune building up and you start with the slider down at the bottom end, so it's really low pitch, and then maybe spend like 4 bars increasing the speed so that create some pretty cool build-ups. And if you start the other end so that it starts high pitch and go down, obviously it's more likely you could use that to go into a breakdown like he was just asking about. So you'd never be able to tell that was Dizzy Rascal, so you could literally use any kind of snippet of a sound to create that layer, really. Yeah, so that's a cool little trick. On the kind of cheating, fake scratching kind of theme, another thing you can do, which is known as the Q scratch, on a CDJ, you wouldn't be able to do this. Well, this has kind of come from a scratch technique that you used to be able to do on vinyl. Basically, if you're, let's just get this sample. So one scratch technique is known as the forward cut, which is where you're kind of playing the sound forward, then shutting out the rewind part, right? Then there's another one called a stab, which is where if you push the sound forward and open the fader, you kind of get a more high-pitched version of that. So you can alternate between the forward cut and the stab to get kind of, right? So obviously that takes a bit of practice because you've got to get the tension right with the fader, and you're alternating and you're always kind of pulling back with the fader shut. So if you wanted to emulate that with the CD deck, the beauty of the Q function is that it silently returns to the Q point. So a forward cut that I was just doing there would be able to be achieved by just literally going, because every time I take my finger off the Q button, it snaps back to that Q point. Whereas a stab, if you push on the platter like that, it silently returns to the start point. So it sounds exactly like that, right? So if you get your left hand on the Q button, your right hand on the platter, you can alternate like that. So you can kind of get quite a cool effect. Again, it sounds exactly the same, it's just you're not having to use the crossfader. Obviously as well, because it's queued up, you could also do a bit of just baby scratching. So you've got about 3 different techniques just with the not even touching the mixer. Forward cut, stab, and baby scratch.
Tutorial how to cheat at scratching.
Yeah, well, yeah.
At Point Blank Online, you've got 2 methods of interaction with your tutor. Firstly, you've got the weekly online masterclass, which is in real time. And then also we've got feedback on your assignments, and that's known as DVR. So the online masterclass is a 1-hour session you get with your tutor every week. You can ask questions about the lesson content and get instant feedback, and also demonstrations on the fly from their computer desktop with our streaming technology. DVR stands for Direct Video Response, and the concept is really simple. You upload your Ableton Logic or Cubase project file to your tutor, he downloads it and then pushes record on the screen capturing software and evaluates your work, so basically giving you one-to-one feedback. You see all of the mouse movements and any parameter changes made by your tutor. It's kind of like sitting in the studio over their shoulder watching what they're doing whilst they work. We have found the DVR process has truly revolutionized the way that we teach online, and the results speak for themselves. Book your place on a course now by visiting pointblankonline.net.